นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings, good evening. The word we use, or one of the words we use most commonly in Buddhism to talk about meditation is bhavana, which means to bring up, to develop. And of course, it's referring to the mind in particular. The practice of meditation is about developing our mind. Why are we trying to develop this mind? Well, because we still have stress, experience suffering. We're not always content or happy or peaceful in ourselves. So the Buddha was, out of compassion, giving us lots of teachings to help develop ourselves as human beings. And because our speech, our actions are related to the mind, developing the mind doesn't mean you're not paying attention or concerned about what you do and what you say as well. You do, because everything begins with the mind. Many traditional Buddhists know the teachings in the Dhammapada and how the first verse of the Dhammapada begins with that. The mind, the Buddha pointed out that the mind is the forerunner, the leader, the chief of everything we do, everything we think, we say, we do. And obviously if it's conditioned by negative emotions, what we call mental defilements, then the mind leads us into suffering. Can't help but do that because that's what mental defilements do. That's their job, their role in life, is to make us suffer. Whereas when the mind is conditioned by the Dhamma, Magga, the Noble Eightfold Path, that's leading us away from suffering, helping us to reduce and end our experience of stress and suffering. So this is why the Buddha encouraged us to develop this mind and put a lot of effort into that, because our whole happiness and suffering in life depends on it. Almost independently of whatever's going on in the world. Doesn't mean to say that what other people are doing and the world is doing around us has no bearing on our happiness and suffering, but it's of secondary importance. Because as the Buddha himself proved through his own practice, and many wise and compassionate practitioners since the Buddha have proven, is that you can develop this mind well to experience happiness and freedom from suffering, whatever the external conditions are. Whether people like you or they don't, whether things are going well in the world or not, whether you're healthy or ill, and so on. We can rise above all these conditions, but we need to develop the mind to do that. And the Buddha's teachings are based on the understanding that the development of the mind is the cause for our happiness. It's not coming through the act of God or gods, or it's not destiny, it's not random. We have the chance to influence our own happiness and suffering through developing this mind or not developing it. And that's our choice. So when we're talking about meditation, we use this English word meditation. What we're really talking about is mental development or mental cultivation for our benefit and of course for the benefit of others, because the happier we are, the more at peace we are, well that's going to affect the people around us as well, in a good way. When we talk about bhavana, we tend to separate it into two aspects, as the Buddha did, samatha and vipassana. These terms you've probably all heard many times now. So samatha refers to developing this basic quality of the knowing or the awareness of the mind, and developing it well through training the mind in mindfulness, sati, and clear comprehension or clear knowing, sampajanya, and particularly to help us abandon negative emotional states, craving, wanting, the sort of emotional states that disturb the mind, the more obvious ones, greed, anger, delusion, that affect us all the time, agitate the mind, take away our peace and happiness. Vipassana bhavana, or the cultivation of clear knowing, clear insight or wisdom, is particularly the development of that knowledge and wisdom that helps us to uproot or abandon ignorance. Ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, ignorance of the way things are. And these two aspects of bhavana, they support each other. We need to put effort into both of them. You can't develop wisdom or discernment without mindfulness and calm, and you can't develop calm and mindfulness without using some wisdom. So they're really two sides of the same thing. Nevertheless, it still brings up a lot of doubt. We always get asked the question, when should I be developing samatha or mindfulness? When should I be developing discernment, wisdom, insight? There's no one fixed answer or set answer to this, I think, other than to know that you should be developing both of these qualities, but in what quantity, at what time, and how. Well, partly that comes through the practice and observing yourself, what you need. There are times when our mindfulness is really weak and the mind is all over the place. That might be most of the time, if we're honest. Often we're not very mindful, so we need to put effort into developing mindfulness, clarity, clear comprehension, a lot. We need to do it a lot, as the Buddha instructed. It's not something you can do as an occasional kind of optional practice. If you really want to develop your mind and overcome desires and passions and calm the mind down with all this stimulation we get from the world, you need to do it a lot. At the very least, every day, meditate for a while, I would recommend. So you really make it something that's part of your life, an important part of your life. Whoever you are, wherever, no excuses. Because we love to have excuses. Too busy, it's too early, too late, too tired, too ill. I'm too young, I'm too old. I'm not this, I'm not that. We've always got excuses throwing up, but we really need to practice a lot and practice regularly to improve our level of mindfulness. What can help is some wise reflection. So the practice of vipassana is not something you only do when your mindfulness is well established, although we tend to teach that as well. We say, well, when your mind is calm, then contemplate, observe the arising and passing away of physical phenomena, mental phenomena, body and mind. Observe impermanence, observe the suffering of things, observe the lack of self in experience. That's the traditional way, but we can use some wisdom at any time in our practice. Just reminding ourselves of the value of meditation and why we need to cultivate this mind is wisdom. Understanding the importance of meditation, having a sense of giving it value, as giving it meaning in your life, that's wisdom. Somebody with no wisdom in the Buddhist sense doesn't even see any point in meditation. And you get people like that. You're sitting meditation with your eyes closed and someone walks past and says, what are you doing? Wasting your time there with your eyes closed. Don't just sit there, do something. Because the majority of human beings are fixated and obsessed with doing things. Sure, in some situations it's necessary. If you really are struggling and have no food on the table or no place to stay and materially you're very poor, then you may have to do quite a lot before you can meditate. That's true. But once you've got enough to eat and a place to stay, it's really about choice, isn't it? And we have to see there's a certain value in training the mind, cultivating the mind, as well as doing all these other things that we do. So giving some value to the practice of bhavana, mental cultivation, is a huge part of your mental development. Because giving value means you're having faith, having the sense this is something good for me, good for others. So partly we get that from recollecting, remembering the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the teachers. Partly we get that through recognizing within ourselves we have our own potential to train, to develop this mind. Sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot before you've even started meditating. You're already saying, I can't do it. I'm not the one to do this. My life is too difficult. My mind is too unruly and too untrainable. I have too much doubt, too much anger, too much worry, whatever it is. We already convince ourselves we can't do it. Self-doubt, self-criticism. So not only do we need to remember the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, but also realize that anyone who's developed their mind through meditation, whether it's samatha or vipassana, they have exactly the same starting point as us, the same raw materials. They have a body, they have a mind, feelings, thoughts, memories. They're conscious. It's part of being a human being. So basically, if you're born as a human being, you have a chance to develop this mind. How far you go with it, how quick, what kind of results to expect, well, that varies between people, of course, but everyone has the potential, has the chance. So we have to overcome a lot of self-doubt, put aside the excuses, make the effort, and then commit to practicing regularly. So 10 minutes a day is not very much. Everyone can find 10 minutes a day if they really want to. And if you have some faith and some appreciation that this is a valuable practice, well, you'll find 10 minutes easily. and put effort into cultivating this quality of mindfulness, using different objects such as the breathing. Improve it so it's not just 3 seconds with the breath and then your mind is off thinking about other stuff. Increase it to 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. That's the aim, is just to improve this ability to keep an object in mind by using one object, just focusing on one thing. The breath, or a recitation of the word, Buddho. All of these are what we call samatha objects. And we need to use them to develop, to train, to cultivate this ability to focus the mind on one thing and gather our mental energy in one place, because this is very useful for us. It helps us to calm down and relax. And we all get stressed and agitated in our life. So it's an immediate counter to the normal stresses of an untrained human mind. And most people find they get at least some quick results doing it as well. The results are not that far away. If you're willing to give up 10 or 15 minutes a day to practice, you'll definitely become more calm and relaxed if you're doing it sincerely, in a sincere way. Just learning to sit still, not get up, not move around and fidget, already that will develop many great qualities such as patience, effort, sense of relaxed, calm awareness in your body and your mind from moment to moment. And you just learn to pay attention, to observe yourself, know yourself better, bringing your attention inwards. We get both physical relaxation, the body starts to calm down when it sits still, and mental relaxation, because you're letting go of distracted thoughts. So most people will start to experience those results quite quickly, if only subtly. In the technical terms, the Buddha uses piti and pamoja, like joy, rapture. These can be very brief moments of just feeling relaxed as you let go of some of the stressful thoughts. And sometimes it can be very deep, profound, long-lasting experiences as well. But they're also the forerunners of a deep sense of peace, tranquility, both of body and mind. Tranquility in body, tranquility in mind, where the mind feels more satisfied and content within itself. It's not rushing away looking for many things. Because that's normally what our mind is doing. It's rushing around. We're always looking for something to do, something to look at, something to think about, somebody to talk to, something to do. If there's no one around, then we'll use technology, phones and computers and so on. The mind is always going out, rushing out from itself. And that's very tiring and distracting, and often leads to a lot of disappointment and stress. So doing the opposite, bringing the mind to pay attention to a samatha object, is very calming, relaxing. If you give it time, if you practice sincerely, you can experience that. And sooner or later you'll realize, this is a way I can calm down when I'm feeling stressed. Sometimes it is challenging, of course. Our mind can be very stressed, full of anxiety, anguish, desires, strong passions, desires that really obsess the mind. Sometimes it's hard, but most times if you work at it, you can calm your mind down. And you know it, so you already start to overcome some of that self-doubt and realize, this can be done. If you can just stay with the breath for, say, a minute without being distracted, already you'll feel a lot more calm, more happy within yourself, more content. Simply you're not following those stressful thoughts anymore, at least for 1 minute, and you'll see the difference. If you're not thinking stressful thoughts, or the stressful thoughts that arise, you're letting them go, you're going to feel better because you're not following them, getting caught up in them. So the practice of samatha, just basic mindfulness practice, training us to know an object and keep the mind in one place, gathering our mental energy together, brings us many immediate benefits. Calm in the body, calm in the mind, and gives us clarity. And that's what supports the practice of vipassana, this ability just to observe physical or mental experience as it's happening in the present moment. Because once you're mindful, you're aware of whatever's going on right here, right now. When we're distracted or stressed, the mind is always not here, right now. It's lost in its distractions, its thoughts about the future. Anxiety is largely about the future, but some anxiety about past events as well, but largely projecting into the future. Worries, predictions, or else expectations of good things as well, wanting things for the future. Or we're going back into memories and longing for the past, or going over the past over and over again. What somebody told me today is ruminating. So we're here in the countryside, some of the neighbours have cows. What do cows do? They ruminate. They use, the other word they use is chew the cud, meaning they regurgitate the half-digested grass they've already swallowed, and then they chew it again. It's their favourite pastime when they're not actually eating fresh grass. They're ruminating, chewing over half-digested grass. Can't imagine what it tastes like, but that's what they do. We do the same with our mind, don't we? If we're not thinking and anxious about the future, we're going over the past over and over again, ruminating, chewing the cud, half-digested mental states, emotions from the past, good and bad, missing the good and hating the bad, and embellishing it and changing it. We rewrite history, as we all know. You remember some event and then you rewrite history in your mind, redescribing it, remembering different parts. So no two people will remember an event the same because we change it as soon as it's in our mind. Our perceptions, our biases, our attachments change everything anyway. So it's very difficult to have kind of an exact memory of anything. But just memory itself, this is what we do. With our distracted mind, we go over the past over and over again, only half aware. This is when we're not mindful. We ruminate, and so we suffer with the past, getting stuck there, either with the past or the future, and we're not in the present moment. This is why we need to practice samatha, bhavana. And not just when we're sitting, when you're walking, standing, even lying down, we cultivate mindfulness and clear comprehension. That's our aim. And it gives us this ability to be clear, to clearly see this body, this mind, and what's going on in the present moment. And the more mindfulness, clear comprehension we have, the more we can see in it with unbiased eyes, without adding on or getting lost with our attachments, our cravings and our attachments, which we tend to constantly add into the mix and change or add on to our experience. So you have a memory come up, and instead of just knowing it as a memory arising then ceasing, you think something about it, you like it. So you start thinking about the bits you like about that memory, and it leads on to thinking about other stuff as well. Or you don't like it and you start thinking about the bits you don't like and start creating a story about that. But rarely are we just observing a thought or a memory arising and ceasing. So rarely are we practicing vipassana. But the idea is to cultivate, develop this ability just to calm the mind down, let go of the more disturbing, agitating, negative emotions, to experience more inner peace, contentment, so you can just observe from a place of peace what's going on. And when you're really observing with mindfulness, you're not judging and creating suffering even when you have an unpleasant memory. You're just knowing it. Oh, it's like this. And you're knowing certain characteristics about it. So Vipassana is particularly knowing the three characteristics: impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, the lack of happiness, you might say, and non-ownership, non-self. These three qualities are what the inner eye of Vipassana is observing and coming familiar with, because these are the three characteristics of existence that are universal. Whether you're looking at the body or the mind, that's just the way things are, except for normally we don't see, we don't notice. But the more mindful we are, the more you can just notice thoughts arising and ceasing, and that's what becomes clear to the mind, to the inner eye, the Dhamma eye. It's impermanent. When we're not so mindful, there's not much samatha, not much mindfulness, we tend to just get caught up into the details of the story, the storyline. Who said what, who did what, or what we should have done, what they should have done, or what we want from things. We just add on through our own desires when we're not very mindful. But as you practice mindfulness, the desires fade, then you can just know things arising into your experience and just know them. Oh, it's just like this. It's a thought, a good one or a bad one, but it arises and it ceases. That's what it does. That's what thoughts do. They arise and pass away. That's what consciousness does. It's impermanent. It's a conditioned thing. With each thought you get different feelings. So, wholesome, skillful thoughts bring pleasant feeling. Unwholesome, unskillful thoughts bring unpleasant feeling. It's also something you can know. Feeling arises and passes away. So the Buddha encouraged us to develop the samatha, to develop this strength of mindfulness so it's more continuous, so then you can observe your own mind and your own body in the present moment as it is. Not how you would like it to be. If that comes up, you have a liking, I want my body to look a certain way or be a certain way, well, you can observe that liking, that desire, that attachment. But it's not going to change anything. Once you're mindful, you realize your desires don't change anything. They're kind of extra or superficial to experience. Physical phenomena are just what they are. The physical phenomena. A sound is a sound, a feeling is a feeling in the body, a sensation in the body is a sensation. Sights are sights, good and bad. They are just what they are. When you're mindful, you don't have to go straight into desiring. You just see the desire come up. You may still be, if the things still trigger liking and disliking, wanting, not wanting. But if you maintain your mindfulness, then the desire just passes away, rather than triggering a whole emotional stream of stuff. This is you might say, the miracle of mindfulness, when your mind is steady enough to observe things in a more balanced, neutral way, with equanimity, and know, oh, this is the way things are. Thoughts arise, pass away. So then these worldly experiences that are constantly affecting us, all around, the goods and the bads, the ups and the downs, the successes and failures, the excitement, the boredom, the things we enjoy, the things we don't enjoy, we just see them as just what they are. They're just conditions of the world that come and go, or rise and pass away. they don't cause us suffering then. If we're honest, we're always looking for the next high, the next pleasure, the next thing that will solve our problems or get us some pleasure, some happiness in some way or other. And we're always trying to get away from what we don't like, what we don't want, situations and things that are unpleasant for us. Our mind is not equanimous, our mind is not peaceful, our mind is not detached and aware. Our mind is always reacting to things, if we're honest. But as you practice samatha and vipassana, mindfulness and then discernment, develop wisdom, usually there's actually a way beyond that. It doesn't have to be like that your mind is pulled all over the place every moment of every day. But you begin with these sort of small steps, learning to meditate, if only for 10 minutes a day. It's a good start, but try to do it every day. Cultivate this ability just to bring your attention to a simple object like the breath, to let go of some of the distractions, and then observe what's going on. Observe your mind. How many times have you felt stressed before in your life, from the day you were born till now, depending how old you are? If you're as old as me, then you've got a lot of stress that you can reflect. Oh, so many times I got worried, angry, upset, disappointed, annoyed, irritated. But where is it all now? Where are all those mental states, those reactions that filled the mind, that seemed so real and important at the time? Where are they now? They arose, they passed away. That's what they do. And you can see probably the rest of your life, however long you live, whether it's one day or thousands of days, it's going to be the same, isn't it? Things are going to arise and pass away. If we're honest, if we're clear about it, that's what we can expect. We can expect one thing from the world, that everything that arises will cease. You don't really know what else will happen in the world, whether there will be World War III, or the economy will go well, or it will collapse, or there'll be this happening or that happening, or you'll get what you want or you won't get what you want. None of that you can really be sure about, but you can be sure that whatever arises will cease. So whatever happiness you're going to experience in the future will arise and then pass away. This is the reflection in vipassana. Whatever object, what we call these five khandhas, whatever part of these five khandhas was there in the past, it arose and passed away in the past. In the present, they're arising and passing away. In the future, they're going to keep doing that because that's their nature. Feelings come and go, thoughts arise, pass away. The body is changing, the sensations of the body are changing. Sights and sounds, they come and they go, they arise, they cease. The more you reflect on these things, the more you see that's the common denominator, the common sort of reflection that you can apply, or the universal reflection you can apply to experience. Everything else is not that. We always want things to be solid and lasting, and they're not. We want things to suit us, and they don't always suit us. We want things to go well, but they don't always go well. It's the nature of the world we live in. The more you can bring your mind to see that, observe that, that's seeing the Dhamma. Everything becomes a teacher and a reminder of that. We have to train ourselves to be able to see that with the eye of clear knowing, inner knowing. It's not just a theory that you believe in, something that you adhere to and say, well, I believe that everything is impermanent. You can start with that, but you have to really know it for yourself. You have to observe it, don't you? Sometimes it's hard, like we don't like to contemplate dukkha, any kind of stress or suffering is quite hard to face, so we tend to run away from it. That's one of the problems between, one of the battles, you might say, in your own mind between samatha and vipassana. Samatha, as you develop it, you do feel more calm, at ease, peaceful, happy, content. You get all these good qualities arising as you practice samatha. And generally we want more of that and we attach to that. We attach to the peace of samatha, the pleasant feelings. When a bit of rapture arises, happiness arises, we want that, we like that. We don't want to lose it. Vipassana is you might say, is more slightly braver part of the mind where you actually contemplate everything, including pain, the painful, unpleasant things just as much as the pleasant. So often people don't want to step out into vipassana, as it were, because they do get stuck or attached to the pleasure of samatha. Sometimes people misunderstand that and they think, well, that means you shouldn't practice samatha, you shouldn't develop samadhi, states of calm, because you'll attach. Well, it's just something you have to be aware of, but it doesn't mean to say don't do it, because you also need that sense of calm in order to observe and see clearly. But you have to train to see clearly as well. You have to train in reflection and observation. Once the mind is settled, then you have to watch what happens as you go about your business. Not just when you're on the meditation cushion, but as you go to work, go here, go there, interact with the world, you have to watch what's going on in your mind. How you create stress through your attachments. This is where we use wisdom and develop wisdom. You can't always rely on escaping situations that are unpleasant. Sometimes they just come your way, whatever you're doing. You can't avoid them. But you can always reflect on them. You can always learn and see where your attachment is causing you suffering. When anger is triggered, if your mindfulness is there, well, it's just an unpleasant situation that would normally trigger anger, but now you don't let anger stick in your mind, you let it go. When greed is triggered, something you like comes your way, nice food, nice people, the things you like, the pleasures you like, when they come your way, they can trigger greed, but you don't stick with the greed, you let the greed go, because you know that's feeding more delusion, more attachment, more disappointment. Because the object of your greed will never last. It rises and ceases. So if you're attached to it, you'll be disappointed. When you're practicing vipassana, you're just observing that. It's not that you get rid of everything, so you don't have any pleasant or unpleasant objects coming your way, but you know them, and you don't let your mind create suffering by attaching to them, either the pleasant or the unpleasant. They once asked Ajahn Chah whether he still got angry or not, because he's considered to be the enlightened master. He said, the causes for anger are still there. There's plenty of unpleasant experiences coming his way. He was a teacher of a large monastery, busy monastery, over 100 people living there and hundreds of visitors every day. All kinds of things had to be done and faced. There'd be all kinds of unpleasant experiences, and he was getting older and he was sick, probably had quite a lot of pain and discomfort in his body. So he said the triggers, the causes for anger are all there in place, but his mind doesn't take them up, doesn't attach to them. So when our aim is not to get rid of every unpleasant thing in the world, that would be impossible. You'd die before you succeeded, because it's impossible. Your aim is to have enough mindfulness to know them as impermanent suffering, not self. So you don't grasp them, take them up and create suffering in your mind. Ajahn Chah still had people who didn't like him, people who gave him a hard time, still had a body that gave him pain, still got tired, had all kinds of problems, but he didn't create suffering out of them. He didn't react with anger, didn't attach to things with greed. He wasn't deluded by the world. The Buddha too. So the Buddhist way of samatha vipassana is not to get to a point where you're in a bubble and you don't have to face any kind of stimulation, sense stimulation, like when you're in a kind of one of those sensory deprivation tanks, or you're in a cave, or you're in some situation where there's no stimulation coming your way. That's artificial, it's impossible. As long as you're alive, you're breathing, living human being, you're going to get some pleasant and unpleasant stimulation. The important thing is have enough mindfulness not to create suffering out of it, not to grasp and attach, not to follow greed, anger and delusion, just to know it as impermanent, arising and ceasing. So I'll leave you with those reflections tonight, and we can use the next period for Q&A if you have any questions. We'll try and give you some answers.